The next topic is communication strategies. In the course of learning a second language, learners will frequently encounter communication problems caused by lack of linguistic resources. So communication becomes a highly complex task in the context of second language learning, because the non-native speaker of the second language will face problems with regard to the appropriacy of word or choice of words or lack of vocabulary or words to convey the intended meaning. Now, communication in such a situation requires specific strategies to handle this kind of problem. They basically pertain, or when we talk about these strategies, they pertain to the employment of verbal as well as non-verbal communication mechanisms to solve the problems that they encounter in their communication. These strategies also pertain to output, that how messages are delivered and understood by the recipient. Different researchers have given their viewpoints with regard to communication strategies. We have Fierich, who says that these strategies are potentially conscious plans that learner uses to solve problems that come in the way of a successful communication. Then we have Bungard, who believes that actually the learner brings about all the possible aspects in aspects of growing competence in order to send message in the second language context, and they are not, or they may or may not be, potentially conscious plans. So now we will look at some of the communicative strategies, because these strategies are the strategies that learner use to overcome problems in order to convey the intended meaning. So as we have seen that the role of verbal and non-verbal mechanisms play or cannot be ruled out, since they provide support to the communication, something which cannot be spoken, something which cannot be addressed verbally. Non-verbal, your facial expressions, your hand gestures provide support or reinforce those verbal utterances. While learning strategies deal with the receptive domain of intake, memory, storage, and recall, communication strategies pertain to employment of all these, which is verbal and non-verbal. In the arena of linguistic interaction, it is sometimes difficult, of course, to distinguish between the two, since comprehension and production can occur almost simultaneously. So the correct interpretation of verbal and non-verbal communication is also sometimes a challenge in the second language acquisition or second language learning context. Now coming to the different researchers, we have Fierich and Kasper, who proposed a model of speech production that involved a planning phase and a production phase. Communication strategies were seen as belonging to the planning phase. Their use became necessary if the learner experienced a problem with the initial plan that they made. In addition to the strategies, Kasper and Fierich also pointed to the possibility of using a reductive strategy, such as switching to a completely different topic. So which means if the topic is not properly conveyed or communication faces problem, then it has been proposed to switch to completely a different topic. Researchers have identified three components of communication strategies. That is problematicity, meaning that the person recognizes a communication problem. Second is consciousness, meaning that the person is conscious of the problem and consciously employing a strategy to resolve it. And intentionality, which implies that the person is able to choose between options for overcoming a communication problem. However, Bialystok and other researchers have pointed out that communication strategies may be employed by language learners when there has been no breakdown in communication, that is, no problem, and that language learner typically uses the same small set of strategies routinely rather than intentionally and consciously choosing to employ a communication strategy. Now the last point says some learners' interlanguages are characterized by communication strategies. So now the reference is towards the interlanguages. And the researcher who has proposed the comments with regard to this is Larry Slinker, who has noted that there are one of the processes that leads to learner errors. Based on this observation, Rod Ellis suggests that the communication strategies that learners use may be characteristic of the stage of development which they have reached. So, the stage of development is closely connected to interlanguages, or the concept of interlanguage, that a middle language or middle grammar that develops in a learner. To conclude, learners use communication strategies in second language learning in order to overcome the problems in a communication process.